Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom and Wonder Show. I am your host, Laura McMullen, and we have the intention of expanding the heart, uplifting the mind, and nourishing the soul. And today we're in conversation with Alexandria Zech, who is a leadership coach, a spiritual teacher and healer, a breath work facilitator, a meditation facilitator, and an awesome mom. So I am just so excited to be in conversation with you, Alexandria. So happy to see you.
Thank you. You too. And I'm so happy to be able to have a conversation with you.
Yay. Well, we have lots of good things to talk about every time we get together. There's just endless amounts of avenues of exploration that we explore together. And so we'll start talking about leadership, and then that will start to get us into other spaces that are interconnected. So I know you have, you're in the process of completing a fairly intensive leadership course over the last 10 months. And so maybe we can dive right into some of your understandings of what leadership is. How has your understanding of leadership grown over this time?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm completing a 10-month program through an organization that I've actually been involved with for about 18 years. And I started when I was 27, was in a pretty dark place and just needed some self-awareness guidance. And I found this organization, Core Experience. And yeah, I just have tapped into, in the last 10 months, a real growth in my own self-awareness and my own leadership. And I'm just thrilled to be able to sort of step into this body as a mom and as as an older woman from my 20s, and to have this kind of guidance and this awareness to what my own leadership looks like. And yeah, I just have been very inspired this last 10 months at what's possible for myself and for everyone, with some tools and some meditation and some new practices. And really it all comes down to self-care. And it really comes down to knowing your needs, like knowing what it is that you need, and then being able to make healthy requests. That's been the biggest lesson that I have learned. And that's actually where inspiration and where guidance and where really like the divine can come in, is when you get some clarity around, or when I've gotten clarity around my own needs and been able to make those healthy requests. So that's been a big part of my leadership, and also my ability to guide others. It's like, well, tell me, what is it you need? And then what is the request? And it doesn't mean that it's a request from others. And it doesn't mean that the fulfillment of those needs is dependent on anybody else but yourself. And that's really the largest, like aha, where it's, if we just can learn how to give ourselves the love that we long for, and can, do the things that we wish others would do for us. And how do I do that for myself?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes practice. It's not something that we innately just know, oh, that's what I need to do. It's practice, practice, practice. So yeah.
So it's I'm hearing a lot about, so if we, as we're taking care of ourselves and identifying our needs and asking for what we need, and then also like taking responsibility for our lives and our choices, that all of that is under this umbrella of leadership. And then something you had shared with me before was that being a leader is not necessarily always being in the front necessarily, that there's also this element of service connected to leadership. So if maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, there's actually a leadership style called servant leadership. And it really is about recognizing yourself not as the doer, but recognizing yourself as the servant, and giving other people the opportunity to do the things that need to be done through inspiration from the leader. And so servant leadership is all about service, and it's all about like active listening and being able to 360, it's called like 360 global listening, like sort of seeing all of the pieces and knowing who you need to have to support for that vision or that goal or that dream to become a reality, or to to who do you need for your project to be able to find the light of day, like, and knowing that it really isn't up to you to be doing it all, but really finding and supporting, and then supporting those that can move it forward. That's a big part of this leadership that I sort of use and follow. And it comes down to compassion, it comes down to empathy, it comes down to listening, it comes down to being a heart-centered person, and that it requires a level of patience and a level of knowing like there's an essential goodness, and that the universe is really here to provide support and has your back. I like to say to people, I'm like, if we just move over on the couch just enough, just like, not even a whole butt cheeks worth, just move over enough to allow for and align with whatever that is for you, whether it's divine or grace or God or spirit or energy or nature, but just enough so that you don't, one, have to think or know that you aren't alone, that you're never alone. You never are doing this stuff by yourself, and you don't need to, because we have lots of people around us, right, who are all looking for their own support. So if we just are open and can invite those people who are searching for you, that you are searching for, they'll come together. They just will. I mean, that's my experience. And especially now, as like being a mother, and just like, those moments where you're just like, I can't do this alone. And then knowing like, oh, right, I don't have to do this. I'm not doing this alone, and I don't have to do this alone. Yeah. And so getting inspired to be an inspiration, right? It's like this, it's a holistic experience. We have to be doing our own work. We have to be providing opportunities in order for there to be room, right? If they're filling all the space, there's no room for anybody else or anything else to come to support you and to assist you. And so I'm kind of going off a little bit from the servant leadership and into another area, but it's all in my my experience is that it's all intertwined, right? The leader is the servant is the leader.
And I love what you talked about with, we've talked before about being an instrument for the divine, or whatever other name one might resonate with. But this idea that there's this, that there's an intelligence that is within us, that orchestrates life, that we are in partnership with, and that we can lean on and rely on and trust. Even if we think about it as like intuition or, guidance from within, whatever it is, but however we conceptualize it, there's something much more than our, limited kind of awesomeness as human beings, that we are really connected to a grander, more expansive intelligence that is always present and is always available for us to access, and like you said, invite into the process of our lives, and the support, the orchestration that happens as we make room for, this presence, this intelligence to work with us. Then it can be really fun, because like you said, we are divinely guided. And then we can be these instruments where we just like, okay, listen and tune in, and then create from a place of connection to something bigger than and that's, I think, a very powerful way to think about leadership, is that I am an instrument for the divine. That language resonates with me personally. I'm an instrument for the divine. I'm an instrument for greater intelligence. So whatever intuitive guidance I'm getting, I will follow it, because I know it will open up into something beyond what I can conceptualize. So I just love that conversation, then that brings us into the self-care. So if we want to invite, spirit or intelligence into our lives more, that we have to be taking care of ourselves, right?
Yeah. And, I spent a lot of this 10-month program is embodiment. There's lots of courses, right? There's lots of coaching courses and spiritual classes, and there's lots. And this particular one that I'm involved with, in this organization that I'm involved with, and where I've gotten my leadership style, is really about the body. And that, we are radars. Our bodies are radars. So there's been lots of science out there talking about, the intuition and the gut reaction, or the gut knowing, or that knowing before you knew that you were going to lose your keys before you lost them, right? That's real. Mm-hmm. It's not like some small little piece of it. Like, our bodies and our hearts and our physical selves can actually detect milliseconds before our brains even process it. And so becoming attuned to the physical body, and like going, oh wait, there's something happening here. Oh, like my stomach feels funny, or my breath has changed, or I all of a sudden have a headache. They're really not like coincidences. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are a radar, and it's information, and it's how we relate to the information that we are being given. And where is that coming from? Where it's an intuitive guide, and it's a divinely sourced guide, and it's our soul's guide. It's, however you relate to it. But it's a scientific, and it's also spiritual. And so from that place, I'm very interested in like the body, and a lot of the work that I do is about getting into the body and just seeing sort of what comes forward from a place, not starting here, but starting, lower, keep going lower, keep going deeper, and so that for me is very important piece of the human experience, right? Because it's not just what we're doing and what's going on around us, but also what's going on inside of us. And that there is a communication and exchange that is happening. And the more you can tap into that through things like meditation, through things like writing, through things like swimming and dancing, and I mean, like all the things that get you into your body, and then becoming open enough to, well, am I out of here enough that I can hear whatever the wisdom might be, or whatever the message might be that will come forward. And again, it's a practice. It's a practice of getting quiet enough, and getting present enough, and having self-awareness, and knowing when you're triggered, right? When there's a stimulus, right? And I've been studying a lot about Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks a lot about stimulus and reaction. And it's the space between stimulus and reaction that gives us pause and allows us to then make decisions versus just reactions. And that's where, especially as a parent, when you're in reaction mode quite a bit, especially with young children, the more I can practice being in the pause, the more likely I am to make healthier choices and better decisions, and to make decisions that are going to be for my benefit and for my family's benefit. So, and again, that kind of folds into leadership, and with my work, with my coworkers, and it just folds into everything. The better I become at pausing, and the better, because there's going to be stimulus everywhere. I mean, turn on the radio for 5 seconds, there's stimulus. Like our political arena, there's stimulus. The trash truck, it's the stimulus, right? It's like there's all that, we have that, but how we respond and how we and that it is in our domain. Like, we are agencies of ourselves, right? I am my agent of me, right? Like I am responsible for my reactions and my choices. I am. And if something outside of me is the stimulus to my reaction, I get to choose what that will be. Even if it's, somebody rear ends me. Do I go to anger and frustration and, shouldn't haves and all of those? Or do I go to, okay, this happened, and now what's the next thing I need to do? Right? And you can feel it, right? The heaviness, it changes. Like one's a little lighter, and okay, you can still be upset, but like, what do you do with that upset, right? How do you be with it? Versus it, kind of becoming this train that you can't get off of, right? This like high speed rail train. And then it's really important to just know, okay. And your body again will tell you, like, if you notice your breath start becoming shallow, and your body, you're sweating, or you become whatever, right? It's like your body's going to tell you, oh, hey, let's slow the nervous system down a little bit. Let's take a few deep breaths. Like what, right? Because you have the time to do it. You really do. Even in emergency, even in trauma, even like we have that ability. It's just, again, not something I think we innately are taught. It's not something that we all were taught by our parents. But it is a lucrative tool for just all of life, not just business and not just for family, like all of life. And so that's what's really inspiring for me, and has been my own journey. To like really finding, like being able to even say this, right, and like know it and like feel it has been my journey.
And so, oh gosh, you're bringing up something so hugely important. And oh my goodness, if we, this pause, the sacred pause, it feels like, I mean, it is, I, like you, have studied and practiced mindfulness and meditation. And this is something that is so alive within that practice, which is everything you're talking about, is being able to kind of shift out of autopilot or reactivity, which, can be quite destructive, right? Like if we're not controlling our reaction, and there's a stimulus happens and we react, and we say things or do things that can really be hurtful to other people, to our families, to our loved ones, because we're angry or we're frustrated and we just can't control that, that reaction. And then we regret, right? And then we have to repair, and then we feel really bad about, this and that and the other. And so this pause, I think, is so profound in our, it's like the opportunity to align who we are and our choices, like our words and our actions, with our highest ideals, right? Like we would rather, in a stressful situation, respond in a way that's skillful and in some ways controlled and thoughtful and in alignment with our highest ideals. So like you were saying, so it benefits everyone involved, right? Mm-hmm. That is a tall, very high order, I think, when we haven't been practicing our whole life, right? And so I think this element of pausing and choosing, there's a wonderful Viktor Frankl quote, just to paraphrase, that it's in that space between stimulus and response that we have our freedom. Freedom to choose.
Yeah.
Because when we're, like you were saying, like when the train goes, we're completely disempowered. It's like we're not even in the driver's seat. We're just now like, going nutty with a reaction that's like, ah. And then we're like, whoa, but when we're practicing mindfulness and sensitivity to within and all of these things, we start to see those signs earlier, like you were saying. And then it's so gratifying to me. I always feel so like, oh my gosh, like I paused, like it's like this huge celebration, because right? I feel like I'm in control of myself, right? Like my emotional state didn't just like take over, and like now I'm on that train and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop this train, but I don't know how to stop it. Right? It's like,
yeah,
put the brakes on, and now I choose it. It's such a celebration. It's such a marker of progress for me in my journey.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you're saying about how powerful that is.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing is like, what I really appreciate about what you're saying about celebrating, like having the self-awareness to like go, oh my God, I'm pausing, like,
Yeah.
you do, and then you're not even like on the
Yeah.
same path at all. Now you're like you're again, you're
Yes.
on your self-awareness path, which is really the path you always, want to be on, because it's really about, and I don't mean from like a self, right? Like the selfish kind of like, oh, it's about me, but it like is about you. And it's about like, it's about, your presence and your awareness, and like being the witness, to your experience is an elevated state. It's just an it's an elevated state.
Yeah.
It's the opportunity to know that you are one, not alone, right? Like that witness, that divine love witness that is within us, can witness and sort of the reaction and the response, and then you have the witness, like then you're like aware that you just witnessed, like that you just did the thing, and now you're the right.
Mm-hmm.
And then to celebrate, right? To celebrate that awareness. And that's changing your neural pathways. All that whole sequence of events is reconnecting sort of the automatic response things and the negative thoughts. And now all of a sudden you have joy. Oh, new connection. Like quickest path to like joy and goodness and all of that is to change the neural pathways, because we are so, especially again, like in our political environment and our world environment, and there's a lot to support the negative, and to practice and become aware of the little wins. Like I didn't yell at my child. I brought joy in. I brought humor in. Oh my gosh! Like, oh, she or he's, in my case, my daughter. It's like, oh, she's pulling one of her little 4-year-old things that she's doing, and I'm not getting mad. I'm just witnessing her, or I'm holding space for her, or I'm right.
Yeah.
And that is changing, at least for me. I know that it is changing the pathways of my brain. I also know that it's, like I don't listen to the news anymore. I make much healthier choices, around, I've always been a healthy eater, but even around like, okay, what am I eating? Where is this coming from? Who, what farm is this from? Or what kind, like I'm making healthier choices because I'm inflating my pause. I'm growing my sacred pause. And I know that in that space is where joy and where love and where compassion and where gratitude lives.
Yes.
And just in me practicing that, right? And giving myself that time every day, like just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, not setting expectations that are outside of the boundaries of what I know I can do, which is, another thing, is another self-care, right? I could say, hey, I want to meditate for 20 minutes a day. I know I'm not going to meditate for 20 minutes a day. I just know I'm not. So I set my, I'm like, okay, well, let's aim for 5 today, or let's aim for 20 this weekend, right? Whatever it is, I want to set myself up to be able to win so that I feel the joy. And so I can find ways to celebrate. So I so appreciate that comment and that awareness around the celebration and the awareness to that, because really don't you want to be, don't we all want to be celebrating our, our triumphs? We do, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And because I think what ends up happening when we are reactionary, especially with people who we love, is it's kind of like not our best self, right? It's not our best self coming out. It's our, it's like the primitive mind kicking in, and we're like in like, whatever mode we're in. It's not our highest version of ourselves. And it's hard to see ourselves sometimes. And, when we're not our best, it's like, and then we feel bad for the, ripple effect of hurting someone's feelings, or, whatever it might be. So I think like the celebration, I think is really important too, because we always want to be able to be our best. We want to bring our best to the world. We're constantly seeking to be happy and fulfilled and be our best selves. And we have our infinite human potential that we're wanting to always fulfill. So when we kind of fall from grace, it's hard. And then you have to add compassion. And acceptance and, okay, well, I'm a human being and it's okay. Okay, now I need to repair. But then we work towards, essentially, I think, is like, how do I want to experience myself?
Right.
This way? That doesn't really feel that great.
Right.
Or do I want to experience myself this way where I can pause? And sometimes I might not have the answer, right? It might just be like, okay, I'm not sure what we're gonna do about this. I need to think about it. So we'll talk about this a little later. And then
Yeah.
go take a couple breaths, and then the reflection and the later comes, and then there's the thoughtful response.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So I might not always be in the moment. It might just be like, okay, we'll have to figure this out a little bit later. Let's go take a walk.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is really important. We're humans, right? And there is a human condition, and really, like, we all have our own upset, and it all probably looks somewhat similar. I probably wouldn't want everyone to see it. We probably have said things and acted in ways and physically done things that we wouldn't want, anybody but maybe our partner, or maybe our, parents when we were children or whatever, to see. Yeah, we all have it. It's not a secret. We've all done it. We've all experienced it. We all, right? And so it would be unreasonable to have the expectation of, like, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
But what is a reasonable expectation, if you want to say expectation, or if I'm going to say that, is that I will try better. Yes. I will do better.
Yes.
I will continue to do the work that I need to do so that I can do better.
Yes.
So that I can be living in my highest self. Absolutely. So that I can, right? And that's really it. It's the learning the forgiveness, yes. Learning the acceptance, forgiveness, releasing attachment to, like, oh, it's supposed to be, oh, damn it, I wasn't supposed to do that. I wasn't going to do that anymore. It's like, okay, how about just accepting that you did, applying that loving compassion that you want, that person that you want to be, to yourself, to the experience, and then, I'm going to do better. Yeah. I'm going to continue my meditation practice. I'm going to continue my yoga. I'm going to continue my walks on the beach. I'm going to continue all the things that create for you the environment for that self-awareness, that witness, the curiosity of, like, okay, like, I fell from grace again. All right. Loving myself. I forgive myself. Okay. And now moving on. Yeah. And moving on and finding the joy again, and not staying in that space of negativity, of upset, of judgment, of sadness, of regret. Like, don't stay there, because that is what that's what perpetuates that. Staying in it and not having the ability to just like love and move forward with the desire for growth and the desire to do better doesn't help the growth, doesn't help the leadership, right? It's okay, I messed up and I'm going to do better, right? And that's really an important piece to this. It's not like, oh, I'm going to be perfect. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, no such thing, no such thing. And there's no, like, because you know what, if you're going to be living, floating 5 feet above ground, like, you're probably not, like, here anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably somewhere else. You're not in this physical body anymore, because really, like, this is part of the human experience, and we all have it. It's it's the condition that we all have, and that should also be part of the joy of the journey, right? Yeah. Right? So that you can find the moments to celebrate. You can say, oh my God, it was a win. Or, sometimes my husband will say to me, he'll watch me interact with my daughter, and, maybe the time before I responded in a more reactionary way. And then the next time he'll just, like, reflect back to me, like, that was masterful. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, and I'll hear that now, and I go, yay, like, I celebrate it within myself, because the celebration really is important. And I just want to, like, the honoring and the celebration of self. Yes. Super important. Yeah. So it's also nice to have somebody around who can reflect back to me, when I might miss an opportunity for me to celebrate, right? Like, he reflects back to me moments where it might just be like, oh, of course I was totally cool with her. You know, of course I was like super patient with her. But then having him be able to reflect that back to me is also really helpful, because then it's like, oh yeah, remember to celebrate this.
Yeah.
Remember to like, remember this moment, you
Yeah.
know?
What a gift that is to have that reflection.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm so enjoying our conversation, and our time is coming up
Yeah.
to complete. We might have to do part two, because I think there's just so much to dive into. I feel like we always get into these rich conversations. Um, I wanted to, I know you have a couple of services that you provide. You have a workshop coming up in LA. Maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of some of your offerings, and then how people can get in touch with you to continue this really deep, transformative inner work to be our authentic selves and to do what we're meant to do on the planet and make a positive difference. So I know that that's what you're about. So
Mhm.
what are some ways people can get in touch with you? Tell us about your workshop.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. So I do have a workshop coming up on January 26th. It's called A New Dawn. And it's about intention setting, creating vision, and then stepping into action for 2019. We'll do some processes. There'll be some meditation, there'll be some movement, there'll be some writing, there'll be some partner sharing. There'll just be sort of a potpourri of all the things that I love and that I want to bring forward for people. And that'll be at the Yoga Nest in Venice, January 26th. It's from 1:30 to 6:30. Um, and there's spaces available. And you can find me and register on Breathwork Healings. So that's Breathwork Healings with an S.com. You can find other breathwork meditations that I do with my partner, Jesse Gross. And we will be having more workshops. I will be hosting more workshops throughout the year. And they'll be different themed based on, what's up for either for me or what I feel like is coming through me to provide. And we lead retreats, international transformational retreats through insightadventures.com. Again, insightadventures with an S.com. So those are two ways that you can find what I'm up to and what I have to offer. And I also do personal coaching, and I also do private breathwork sessions and meditations. So yeah, that's what I have.
Yes, what you have.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I'm so, so grateful for this time with you. I know I get to see you often, so I know that we'll just continue and maybe do part two. Um,
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you.
yeah, you are just such a wealth of knowledge and beauty and love, and
Mm.
you do such important work, and I really, just really appreciate who you are and all that you do, because it makes a mighty difference. And thank you for being here and sharing a little piece with all of us.
Yeah, well, thank you too. And I just want to honor the space that you're creating and holding for these conversations, and also for the gift that you are wanting to share with the world through these conversations and through the work that you're doing. So I am all the wonderful things you said. I'm just a reflection of you, my dear.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much. I will
Thank
see you
you.
soon, and yeah, I look forward to reconnecting again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.